Hello, everybody. With the patch 12.10 durability update in full swing, Riot has unveiled their plans and what they're going to buff and what they are going to nerf in the next patch. While these specific numbers aren't here, what they're doing in general, his developer notes here, and what they're doing, what their general plans are, and when the specific changes are actually mentioned, I'll go over that in my patch note video when it goes live. But for now, we're going to talk about what was too strong and what was too weak in this patch. Now, before I go through this, I want to talk about this here. Champions that narrowly missed the cut: Janna, Singed, Trundle, Shyvana, Mordekaiser, Ivern, Renekton, Soraka, Alistar. Now, to be clear, when they say narrowly missed the cut, they don't mean nerfed. I'm assuming they meant they were going to buff Alistar and Renekton, but they didn't because of the changes that are happening. Whether or not you agree with that, we'll see as we go through them. But, let's go through them. So going from top to bottom, but actually I'm going to be skipping around a lot because this will actually make way more sense if I skip around a lot. Trust me, I've done a test run on this video a few times, and skipping around actually does give you a better picture on what's going on. So before I go into it, remember to like, remember to subscribe, and make sure to leave a comment down below on your thoughts and anything like that. So going from top to bottom. They're buffing Everfrost, Crown, Rocket Belt, and Night Harvester. For those of you who can't remember these specific item names, these are all the burst ability power items. Now, what they are nerfing is Liandry's and Riftmaker. Those are the sustain damage AP items. To the shock of nobody, sustain damage was massively overtuned because last patch everyone died in one hit. You don't need sustain damage if everyone dies in one hit. So sustain damage was massively overtuned to try to compensate in a burst environment. When the burst went down, obviously the massively overtuned sustain damage items became a bit overpowered. So the sustain damage items are being nerfed, the burst items are being buffed. I actually think that's probably a fair way to go about it. In addition, and I did mention this on my patch note video because, let me zoom this in here, because Riftmaker went from 8% to 7% Omnivamp. It was nerfed the least out of any of the Omnivamp lifesteal, those kinds of items. It went from 8 to 16% to 7 to 15%. That just straight buffed it, particularly when you looked at the nerf to healing debuffs. It meant that this got way stronger. So we can see also here tanks became weaker than 12.9 with a few exceptions, bringing them back up. Yes, this is also true. Tanks were decidedly weaker because sustained damage items and stuff like that were so overtuned that when everyone started building sustained damage, tanks couldn't really compete because tanks also relied on bursting people down to do anything. They would burst you, you'd have, half your HP left, a fourth your HP, and then you just continue to sustain damage them, and there was not a lot tanks could do. Items like Liandry's and Riftmaker were just utterly obliterating them. Also, remember, Riftmaker does true damage, which means it bypassed the additional armor and MR that people have. So, going back to the top, Gore Drinker is being buffed. It was, quote, overnerfed. Some assassins don't have a better option and are buying. I don't think that's true. That's stupid. Assassins actually are doing fine. AD assassins were the best class for 3 years, potentially 5, depending on how you look at it. And they are actually, in my opinion, doing absolutely fine. They're just better balanced now. But they are buffing Gore Drinker because when we look here, we can see that the Gore Drinker champions, outside of Fiora, so Aatrox is doing worse, Riven is doing worse, Set is doing worse. These champions are all doing worse. Now this is Plat Plus, by the way. Once you start going into other ranks, we don't have like super mega high data yet for the higher ranks, but you can get a general idea from Plat. Even when we look into, I'll look into Diamond Plus, we can see that Aatrox is much lower pick rate, Riven is much lower pick rate. Riven's not even a 53% win rate, which I was shocked they weren't buffing Riven at the same time they were buffing Gore Drinker, which is the first time in 3 times they buffed Gore Drinker. This is the first time they have not buffed Riven in addition to that. So yeah, we can see the Gore Drinker users, even if I look here, let me actually find Set. Did I miss him? No, okay, yeah, Set way down in pick rate. This used to be a top 3 pick. Now he's number 16 with a 49%. So in my opinion, yes, Gore Drinker was a bit over nerfed. I think they went a little bit too far on that. Duskblade, Eclipse, and Prowler's Claw, and Axiom's Arc, and Serpent's Fang are all being buffed, right? It says assassins are weak across the board. Being careful not to return too much burst and also reduce incentives for fighter builds on assassins. I actually think that's bullshit. If we look at, let's look at D2 Plus, and we can see that, where is Kiana? Am I typoing her name? Oh, I'm in... Okay, my bad. My bad. I was in top lane. So we can see here that when we look at D2+, which, by the way, Qiyana does better the higher rank you go, she already still has a 52% win rate. Qiyana is still doing way too good. While some AD assassins like Zed are seeing a reduction to their pick rate and their win rate, a lot of assassins are actually still kind of doing fine. Talon still has 51%, Qiyana still has 52%, Jace I think actually went up in win rate slightly. So actually I totally disagree with this, and I think Riot, you do realize that AD assassins are doing fine. Yes, Zed is doing worse, but actually I have a reason why Riot Zed might be doing a bit worse. And let me go through here, because you nerfed him directly a lot. You nerfed the AD ratio on his ultimate considerably. You nerfed and swapped around his AD ratios. You nerfed the cooldown on his ultimate, all because he was one-shotting people too easily. Now, when you make people tankier, I think that you should consider looking into specific champions that are underpowered and overpowered. Maybe Zed saw a little bit too hard of a nerf. Okay, that's fine. Then maybe return the damage to his ultimate. But right, when I'm looking at Talon at a 51% and I'm looking at Qiyana at a 52% win rate, and that's not even Masters Plus, they could even better at the higher ranks, okay? When I'm looking at that, and then I'm seeing you guys buffing Serpent's Fang, Axiom Arc, Prowlers, Eclipsed, and Duskblade all in one patch, I start suspecting, Riot, that you are being extraordinarily biased towards a class that has been dominating for 3 years. Look, Riot, I understand, but you could maybe let them be weaker for more than 2 weeks? Like, they're not even weak. Zed is a little weak. Yes, a little weak at 49%, but to say you need to buff every one of their items? Okay. So Steric's Gauge is getting buffed. Okay, this is, wow. Oh boy, Steric's Gauge is getting buffed. Was that item over nerfed? Did anyone notice that Steric's Gauge was over nerfed? Wow, I didn't know. So they're buffing Gore Drinker, they're buffing Steric's Gauge. Okay. Down here, though, they're nerfing Mauve Malmortius and Stance. Okay, I'm going to be dead honest. Mauve Malmortius needed shield nerfed for quite some time. Its shield was so big that half the time it never even got broken outside of like a Veigar ultimate. And let's be honest, Veigar's ultimate should get nerfed. They shouldn't have an item that can tank an ultimate that does like twice the damage that it should be doing right now. So Mauve Malmortius has needed shield nerfed for quite some time, actually, in my opinion. Destance, I don't think is overpowered at all. They say these items have been strong since fighter changes, tapping them down a bit after seeing how they landed post durability update. So here's the thing, I don't know where Riot is going with this, because yeah, there are some fighters that are overtuned, but I mean, like, what? Where? Right? Like, this is about normal, no? Right? I'm looking at D2+, right? We see Gwen dominating, we see Fiora dominating, that's not a shocker. We see Gangplank dominating, we see Camille dominating, we see Darius dominating. Okay, none of these are new, none of these are shockers, right? I don't think that Death Stance is contributing too much to anything. The Bruisers aren't dominating other roles either. There's not, I don't understand. It seems like they're just nerfing Death Stance to appease the Reddit user base, other than actually being intelligent about anything. So, over here we're going to talk about sustained damage, but what I don't understand is they're buffing Blade of the Ruined King, which I don't understand that one. They say Blade of the Ruined King was over nerfed, but I don't believe that's what's happening. I think, in my personal opinion, I think that champions that would use Blade of the Ruined King simply aren't being picked. They're talking about Irelia. Well, if we look back to Aurelia's nerfs, they were really, 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 really big. They were bizarrely big. They nerfed Irelia bizarrely hard, actually. I don't understand why they nerfed Irelia so hard. So if Irelia is not performing well, it's not because of Blade of the Ruined King, it's because you trashed on her. Jax is doing just fine, and we're seeing his win rate and pick rate continue to go up as people are adjusting to the new itemizations. But no, I don't think Blade of the Ruined King need to be buffed. I think, if anything, Blade of the Ruined King should have been nerfed even harder, but okay. Down here in the sustained damage, because we're going to talk about tank items here, but the final sustained damage nerfs is they are nerfing Lethal, Tempo, and Kraken Slayer, which, yeah, those needed to be nerfed. They, once again, like with Leandries and stuff, these items were massively overtuned, because why would you go Kraken Slayer if you could just go Gale Force? Gale Force 90% of the time would outdamage Kraken Slayer and have mobility and have movement speed, whereas Kraken Slayer would have more sustained damage. Well, yeah, we're seeing that tanks now are really struggling, because if you go Rage Blade with Kraken Slayer and Wit's End and stuff like that, by the way, Wit's End is needed to be nerfed. I don't know why they're not nerfing that. If you do that, then yeah, tanks can't really do much. And we're seeing that. If you ever try to play a tanky champion, yeah, you're going to see Kraken Slayer and Lethal Tempo being used, and you're just going to get crushed, and there's not much you can do about it. So either way, they're nerfing more sustained damage down here. Now that probably helps tanks out enough. This might be going too far, right? Like, I do agree that tanks were a bit too weak, but when you nerf all sustained damage, that does help tanks out. When bruisers are being nerfed, mages are being nerfed, AD assassins are being buffed, but tanks typically actually do well into AD assassins until late game, at any rate. That does help tanks be more viable. But let's talk about what they're buffing on tanks. They are buffing Bammy Cinder, which is odd. They're buffing Frostfire Gauntlet, which is odd. They're buffing Turbo Chem Tank, which is odd. They're buffing Sunfires, which is also odd. So they're buffing all the damage over time items. They went from sustained damage is overpowered, we're nerfing it all, to buffing sustained damage, but only on tanks. Do you see my issues here? Do you see why I might have a few qualms with what they're doing here? Because I see where this is going. When tanks are down here and everyone else is up here, and you lower everyone else down and then you raise tanks, do you see where the issue is? You're not nerfing everyone else and then putting tanks on their level. You're nerfing everyone else and then raising tanks to where their level used to be. Whenever you double compensate in a situation like this, it tends to lead to issues. Okay? So Randuin's Omen is being buffed. I actually did think Randuin's needed to be buffed. Hopefully they're buffing it to 300, maybe 350 HP. Omen was kind of fine, but it just didn't give enough HP. And particularly when health bars have been buffed, it just doesn't move your health bar enough. Frozen Heart is just blowing it out of the water right now. Spirit Visage is being buffed. Well, that's a shocker. I had no idea it was underpowered. Was it really underpowered for over a year now? Who knew? Not me. Abyssal's Mask is being buffed. Abyssal's Mask continues to be an item that feels great until you build it. I guarantee for all of you people, if you look at Abyssal Mask, a lot of people look at it and they go, oh, but it's such a good item. Why are they buffing it? They've buffed it now. They buffed it once, and this will be the second time. I promise you, if you actually build this item, I promise you, you'll very quickly notice this item kind of sucks. It's not bad, but it's just clearly not good. In addition to everybody getting more magic resist, thereby reducing its effectiveness, it just didn't really do that much. Zeke's Convergence, I don't understand why they're buffing. That's a sustained damage item once again. And Knight's Vow they're buffing, which again, sustained damage items. Yeah, I mean, Zeke's Convergence literally does damage, and Knight's Vow helps. I guess Knight's Vow was more of an anti-burst item. I don't know. So anyway, these are what they're buffing for tanks and tank supports, I guess. Overall, I'm a bit worried once again. Nerfing who they're fighting and then buffing them very likely will just cause a power tilt. I mean, it's not like tanks are underpowered by like 3, 4, 5% win rate, right? I mean, even if we go down and we look in here, Scion is nerfed, but that's because you guys nerfed the ever-living shit out of Scion. That's not my fault. That's on you, Riot. Malphite's underpowered by 2%. But, I mean, at the higher ranks, I think he was like 49% anyway, so he's down by like 1%. Shen is down by 3%, but Shen was the hardest hit for obvious reasons. Ornn is down by 1%, so we have 1% on Malphite, 1% on Shen, or sorry, 2 or 3% on Shen, 1% on Ornn. These aren't champions that are like down here at 45% win rate. They're down by like 1 to 2% win rate, other than Scion, who you nerfed his shield. Okay, just to be clear, I'm going to talk about this one, because I think a lot of people are pointing to Scion as tanks being underpowered. Let me be very clear here. Scion's not underpowered because all tanks are useless. Scion is underpowered because they buffed his shield right back here. They buffed it to 10 to 14% from 8 to 12%, and this is finally what made him viable. Then they nerfed it down to 8 to 12% from 10 to 14%. Do you get the issue here? They literally undid the buff that made him viable. So no shit, he's gonna be weak. Tanks are weaker, and you literally, he's like, yay, I have a toy, I can be viable, and Riot fucking like punched him in the face, took his toy. Sion's just sitting there like stone cold knocked out, and Riot's like, who did this to you, Sion? Who made you so weak? So that's what they're doing here. They're nerfing tower damage, but only on the outer turret, which, okay, I kind of agree with. There's a difference between let's make turret diving harder and turrets just being there like, I fucking dare you. I fucking dare you to dive this bitch. Champions were dying in 3 turret shots for all the early game. Now look, turret diving was very, very overpowered. I don't think they should they should obviously not revert it back to where it used to be, but maybe reduce it by like a little bit, not a lot. Okay, I still think it's a good thing that turret diving is much, much more difficult. It makes being 2v1 much more manageable, but you know, they're definitely, it's definitely a little bit too much. Did I miss anything here? Oh, Umbral Glaive is being nerfed. I wonder why Umbral Glaive is being nerfed. Can we talk about that one actually? Could it be because you randomly buffed it when it was already good? Could anyone? They reduced the blackout cooldown and reduced its gold cost when it was already being built and was already a good item. Does this surprise anybody that they're now nerfing it? Doesn't surprise me because I'm not an idiot. In addition, down here, Grievous Wounds is being nerfed again from 30 to 50% to 25 to 40%. Thank God, after so many years, Riot is finally wising up to this shit. Look, here's the issue. If healing debuffs are overpowered, and this will hopefully be another nerf to Ignite, if healing debuffs are overpowered, what that means is that healing has to be overpowered to compete. Even at a 50% healing debuff. Remember, guys, can we look at this? Remember, Grievous Wounds sat for 50% for how many years? So 60%, they added 60% in Season 9, but they only gave everyone access to 60% at the end of Season 10, so Season 11. It was 40% for 6 years. It was 6 years of 40%. And what did Riot do? They randomly buffed it to 60%, which in turn meant that everyone who healed had to be buffed across the board. I've talked about this for 12 years of those 6 years, okay? Yeah, it was stupid. Healing debuffs should be low, and even 40% is good. Just to be clear, a 40% healing debuff is still good. But the thing is, if it's 60% and it's manageable, and even if Ignite is 60%, the issue is that every healing champion needs to be massively overtuned to compensate for healing being too strong, which then means that healing is so strong that you need a healing debuff. And when you need a healing debuff, it goes from healing debuffs being an optional anti-healing effect to being a mandatory anti-healing effect. And nobody likes every single game having to blow an item slot on anti-healing. That's bad. So now let's talk about these specific champion buffs. Zinzal is being buffed. Let me talk about this one, because I think Riot doesn't really piece some things together. Let me close all these tabs I've already opened up. So let's talk about Zinzal. When Riot did the patch, Zinzal was already getting weaker because Burst was getting weaker, but then they slashed his healing ratio from 10% to 7%, which already, that was a pretty low ratio to begin with, right? 10% AD, that means you'd have to attack, what would that be, 30 times to get a 100% AD healing? That's a lot, right? That's not a lot of healing. So they slashed his healing by about 20, then they slashed the AD ratio by 30%, and he was already getting weaker because, shockingly, he's a burst champion. He does okay in sustained, but it's been like 10 years since Zinzal has been a premier sustained damage champion. Does he do more sustained damage than like Renekton? Yeah. Does he do more sustained damage than basically any sustained damage? No. No, he's pretty much a burst champion. So Zinzal got absolutely obliterated. They're buffing him back. Nunu. Okay, this is gonna shock some of you, but would you believe that Riot over-nerfed Nunu? Riot over-nerfing a champion? No way. They slashed his health ratio from 10% to 6%. Then slashed the AP ratio from 90% to 70%. Not even stopping there, they then reduced the healing by 10 to 30. They nerfed his heal, I think, more than any other champion got their heal nerfed. So in addition to tanks getting weaker, they butchered Nunu's healing. So Nunu is a spam early game gank jungler who can't turret dive anymore, who has harder early game ganks, who now scales even worse. Where did Riot think this was gonna go? I'm sorry, Riot, you guys are stupid with this. Where did you guys think this Nunu change was gonna go? It was obvious to everybody. Okay, Ryze is getting buffed. I don't really want to talk about Ryze. I don't fucking know. Tarik's getting buffed. I don't know, dude. I don't know. Recon is getting buffed. Okay, let's talk about Recon and Tarik. They were both tank-ish supports. The issue is that both of them relied on one big all-in combo, and that just didn't work anymore because people were tankier, so they got weaker, a lot weaker. Samira and Caitlyn and Aphelios are basically the same thing, but I'll talk about Aphelios here for a second. These were both AD carries that relied more on burst, so as compared to their more sustained damage friends, they got decidedly weaker. Caitlyn can't just kill you in like one trap Q W auto, where I don't even know. She can't just kill you because you stepped on a trap. You can't just be like, oh, she can't just be like, oh, you stepped on one trap, dead from full. Okay, so Caitlyn is going down. Well, I mean, she's getting buffed. Samira, same thing. It was kind of sad watching Samira ult and people's health bars would go like ding 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 ding, and then her ult would be over. Aphelios, okay, so the thing with Aphelios is they nerfed Lord Dominic's regards, its armor pen, but Aphelios has a shitload of lethality in his kit. So when they nerfed the armor pen on Lord Dominic's regards, it actually affected Aphelios more because he had the janky lethality Lord Dominic's dual scaling. In addition, he's kind of ability oriented, and when he can't just one hit you in an ability, A, because people are tankier, and B, because he himself lost some synergy, it affected him a lot. Now, I'm not sure 100% because he is a late game champion, so maybe, I mean, I can just quick look here. He always has a lower win rate, so even 47% is about average for him, to be completely blunt. So he is a late game champion, so this might be a bit silly. Tahm Kench is getting buffed, which I don't understand, because here's the thing. I'm gonna go find him. Tahm Kench Senna is taking over. Now they are nerfing Senna down here, but the thing is, Tahm Kench Senna right now is really overpowered, like really overpowered. They would have to nerf Senna unbelievably hard to try to finally balance this lane. Now maybe that's what they're doing. Maybe they are nerfing Senna really hard, so they're buffing Tahm Kench to try to compensate, to be like, let's make sure he's still viable after they nerf Senna. Maybe, I don't know. If we look up Tahm Kench himself, he's probably not picked in support that much. Yeah, he's very low pick rate, very low win rate for how low pick rate he is. I mean, he's doing slightly worse than Tarik, which, wow, Tarik, you are doing bad, buddy. Yeah, so I guess that's what they're trying to do. Maybe they're trying to nerf Senna Tahm Kench, but nerfing the Senna side really hard and buffing Tahm Kench. I don't know, but either way, I would be afraid of this, because if the Senna nerfs are undone by the Tahm Kench buffs, then we're just right back to this power duo bot lane that's just really overpowered. Irelia is being buffed, which, okay, you guys aren't going to believe me on this one, but they disproportionately nerfed her healing really badly. Now, I'd be a little bit afraid on this, right? Because you're buffing Blade of the Ruined King, and sustained damage is about to be really better. So maybe let this one play out before you buff her. They did nerf her healing from, it was 8 to 16%. They nerfed it to 7 to 11%. Okay, that was really bad. They removed a third of her healing at max rank. That was probably a little bit too much. Maybe a little bit too much, but I would be a bit wary, right? Because you are buffing Blade of the Ruined King, you are buffing some of these items, so maybe play it cool for a little bit. Maybe let Irelia players get more used to stuff. Gragas is being buffed. I'm not sure I want to talk about that one. Gragas, AP Gragas was more of a burst champion. If he can't one-shot people in his burst, he didn't do much. But with buffing all the tank items and tank Gragas with his E body slam spam being pretty decent, maybe Ryze should wait a little bit on this one, in my opinion. Maybe tank Gragas comes back. You don't want to see tank Gragas actually be viable. Trust me, it's not fun for anyone. Lee Sin's getting buffed. I don't think that should really surprise anybody. Lee Sin got hit pretty hard when you can't one-shot anybody anymore, and all his items got nerfed. Yeah, but again, they are buffing Gore Drinker, and they are buffing Steric's Gauge, so maybe play it a little bit cool on Lee Sin. You know, maybe don't push him right back, because remember, Lee Sin is perfectly viable at 48%, right? Okay, so then they're buffing Tryndamere. That, you know, once again, if everyone's tankier, it's harder for Tryndamere to kill people, and his ultimate, which hit him hard. How hard? So hard that I had to scroll down pretty far to find him. Tryndamere is doing significantly worse in every way. Yep. And then they're buffing Silas. Silas, okay, so let's talk about Silas here, and I'm gonna, you'll be shocked as to what happened. You'll never see it coming. They nerfed his healing pretty hard when his healing was already pretty bad. So the thing is, right now, the rank 1 heal, if he gets it doubled, it goes to 40 at rank 1. 40. This has been nerfed pretty hard, and yeah, you can see the maximum heal is now 40 to 200 with a 0.7 AP ratio. That's, like, at the max rank, that's still decent, I guess, but it's just, you nerfed his early game again. Silas does rely on bursting you down. He can spam a lot of ability haste, but it takes him a while to get there, and because his early game is so bad, I keep seeing him getting smashed in the early game and never getting anywhere. As for nerfs, Lelia top is being nerfed. I'm not going to go over them. Lelia has been horribly broken in top lane this patch. I've been lucky to not actually have to fight her. Probably cursing it for myself now. Probably going to fight nothing but Lelia top now. Wukong is getting nerfed. That should shock nobody. Wukong didn't need to be buffed at all. In fact, if I go, where is Wukong? Yeah, his win rate in the top's pretty high. His win rate in the jungle is even higher. I think the only reason he's not being picked more in the top lane is because his pick rate in the jungle is, between the ban rate and the pick rate in the jungle, it's nearly 50% already. He's extraordinarily overpowered. Master Yi's getting nerfed. I don't need to look to tell you. It's because, oh wow, Master Yi was overpowered at the low ranks because of his sustained damage. Woo! Swain's getting nerfed. This one shocked me. Okay, so let me explain actually what happened. Swain had a bug where only his rank 1 ult was doing anything. If you went to rank 2 or you went to rank 3, it didn't actually change his ult at all. And he still had a 51-52% win rate. So once they fixed that, Swain was really good. Too good. I don't know how Swain players are doing it, but Swain, despite the massive nerfs to his healing, and despite the fact that his rework looked good, okay, you know, despite that, Swain is just doing extraordinarily good. Hats off to Swain players. I don't really know how you're doing it, but you're making that champion look really overpowered, despite not really looking that overpowered. Talia is getting nerfed. Well, I mean, does that shock anyone? I mean, holy shit, Riot. This is a D2+. If we go to Masters Plus, Riot, I told you those nerfs were not going to be enough. This champion is disgustingly overpowered. Gwen, I mean, let's just look at Gwen here. Gwen is balanced at like a 48-47% win rate. At Masters Plus, she's getting to a high 50% with a 12% pick rate. That means that Gwen is being picked almost 25% more. In fact, yeah, exactly 25% more. Well, not exactly, but nearly, than the number 2 pick. Gwen, right, right, I promise you, you need to mentally accept that not every champion is balanced at 50% win rate. You need to accept that. Gwen is balanced at 48%, or around 47%, okay? Right, please? Kayn, they're nerfing blue Kayn. I don't know. It beats the fuck out of me, I don't know. Brand is getting nerfed. I actually know this one. It's because when you go to all ranks, brand support is literally the highest win rate support, even higher than Janna. Although questionably, Ryze said Janna did not trick the cut, but brand support did. Questionable, right? Particularly because once we go to, I don't know, D2+, we see Janna is extraordinarily overpowered, whereas brand is down here. So Riot, I do believe, I'm gonna call you out on this, you're being extremely biased on Janna. Extremely. Please nerf her. In fact, I'll literally respond to this right now. Brand at all ranks, 53% win rate. Janna at all ranks, 53% win rate. Brand at D2 plus, 48%. Was it 48%? 48% win rate. Janna at D2 plus, 54% win rate. Thank God Janna didn't make the cut, but Brand did. Okay. Kog'Maw getting nerfed. I'm not gonna go into that. Yeah, wow, shocking. Rengar got nerfed. Rengar players just started swapping over to Bruiser Rengar, so now they can still one-shot you, even through the durability buffs. Even though they're building Bruiser, they can still one-shot any squishy, but now they're also tanky and hard to kill. Shocker. They didn't nerf his W healing, despite nerfing all healing debuffs, so bit questionable on that, right? Not sure what's going on there. Rengar was already overpowered, and then you nerfed him less than everyone else. Varg's getting nerfed. Okay, that's a shock to everyone. I mean, to nobody. To nobody. Senna's getting nerfed. Yes, she's ridiculously overpowered. Olaf top is getting nerfed. Olaf is doing quite well in top lane right now. Quite well. I've been probably spamming him, and you've been seeing me spam him. Yeah, he's doing really well. Yeah, a little bit of a tone down. I don't think he needs to be massively nerfed. I actually think his win rate is inflated by people dying to his shield. I get it in chat all the time. Olaf is a shield now. They'll literally run up and die to you, and then so I think a little bit of a nerf, right? A little bit of a nerf, but don't go too far. I actually think his win rate is being inflated pretty hard right now. I think it actually will go down. I do think he's overpowered, but I don't think you need to go ham on him, okay? And that is this patch. They're also adjusting Fizz and Zary. For Fizz, I imagine they're buffing his early game and nerfing his late game. For Zary, I have no idea. Zary is a failure. Zary is very bad as a design. I'm gonna be blunt. Zary is very bad as a design. So the biggest adjustment here is buffing Grievous Wounds. Well, I should say nerfing Grievous Wounds, and buffing Gore Drinker looks a bit sussy-wussy. In fact, yeah, that's a bit sussy. Buffing tanks and then nerfing all sustained damage items is a bit sussy-wussy. Buffing Steric's Gauge and nerfing Distance. So they nerfed Steric's Gauge and buffed Distance. Now they're nerfing Distance and buffing Steric's Gauge. Right, bruisers can have good items. I assure you, bruisers should be allowed to have good items, okay? Maybe we should just change Distance back to a health ratio, because, right, the thing is, and it's an AD ratio, it just gets used on assassins, and then they just consider it one of their best items because they stack health, and then they see an item that gives them heavy damage mitigation, especially if they can get an early kill. It gives them hella damage mitigation. Yeah, right, we should maybe look into that one, maybe a little bit, perhaps, right? Maybe. Anyway, that's it for this patch. I hope you all enjoyed this video and these explanations, and if you agree or disagree with my thoughts and Riot's thoughts on all this, make sure to leave a comment. I do try to actually read and respond to all the comments. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being here. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And as always, make sure to subscribe to my Patreon. I'm getting DMCA spammed really hard lately. Even since my last post, I continue to get DMCA spammed just out of the blue. I think my channel is literally being targeted by nonsense companies at this point. So please go to my Patreon down below. The link is in the description. If you join my Patreon, you can vote on what my next video will be. I'm trying to do at least one video every week or 2 weeks voted on and talked about by Patreon members. So if you want to do that, if you want to get in on that, for as little as $3 a month, you can support me. So thank you, and thank you all for watching this video. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.